I'm live. I think I'm live. Let me double check here. Yes, I am. Hey, everybody. This is Bruce Collins from The Bruce Collins Show. I have a great show tomorrow that's being released. It's with the news media personality, Bay Area news legend Frank Somerville, and we're going to get an inside look to the news media. I think you're really going to like it. I asked some really pointed questions about the news media, and he was really candid about his responses. So I think you'll really enjoy it. We've got a lot of great interviews coming up on the show. But today I wanted to show you something. Let me see if I can do this live. And I wanted to show you an interview with Chris Jericho. Chris Jericho is a well known professional wrestler, and he's interviewing Jack Perry, who was the son of the actor Luke Perry, as well as another wrestler called Luchasaurus. They're both in a wrestling company called AEW. The thing that struck me is they mention a specific person, and this person's name was Ric Drasin. He was the middle Hulk in the Incredible Hulk TV show. In other words, when Bill Bixby turned into Lou Ferrigno, the middle guy was a former Mr. Olympia named Ric Drasin. And Ric Drasin was also in the old movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger called Pumping Iron. He was an actor. He was on, guest spots on shows like Charlie's Angels and all of that. And I knew him, so I wanted to show this part of the interview. I thought it was kind of interesting about they actually mention Ric Drasin. So let's take a look. Okay, here we go. And again, the host is Chris Jericho.
Yeah. Did you ever get to meet Luke Perry?
I did actually.
Yeah.
So when we started training for wrestling in Van Nuys, California, out here, not too about 20 minutes from where we're at now, he would bring Jack, and Jack was like what, 12, right?
Jack is Luke Perry's son. I actually can see the resemblance. And Jack Perry is a professional wrestler now, if you didn't know that.
11,
I was
12.
like 9.
I'm so old.
Wow, 9.
Yeah.
Oh my God, being a dinosaur, I'm so old. Jeez.
Well, you're hundreds of thousands of years,
Yeah.
millions of years.
Millions of years, yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's all the same at this point.
Yeah, right.
But yeah, so he would always come with his kid. I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, wow, I'm going to keep going to this wrestling school, I guess, because like this guy's telling me he's got famous people come here. I'm going to go to WWE one day. That's what he would say, right? So it's like I was paying $50 a class to this guy
$50,
who did nothing except have me teach the class. And I'm like,
Dude, he can't. He's
oh,
Who
sorry.
was the guy?
Ric Drasin.
Oh,
He's
I know
he's a
Rick.
good
Ric Drasin. That's the person I know. And I have a story at the end.
guy. He was a good guy. It was just funny though, because it was like classic.
Did Rick have a wrestling ring in his
Yes,
backyard?
that was where we
And
trained.
there was a hole in one corner of the ring, and he'd say, "Yeah, don't go in that corner of the ring." A guy who was like one of the better guys in the class just went and blew his ACL stepping in the hole, and he's like, "Guys, that side of the ring." And I was a
I
kid.
had to go to that ring once.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, and it's a long story, which I'll tell you later. But I had to go to that ring, and I met Rick
Yeah.
because he had the ring in his backyard, like surrounded by a fence. And I
Yeah.
was like, so that was your original.
That's
trainer.
our original trainer. Yeah.
Wow.
He was
okay.
missing a finger. Do you remember that?
I
I
do.
remember.
He
Yeah.
had sawed his finger off accidentally. And the first time I met him,
How do you accidentally saw your finger off?
he was like, "Songs? I don't know."
I'm
He
like
did
an
it.
electric saw.
Yeah.
I don't imagine he's like doing this.
Yeah, he's like,
wow,
"Oh, I'm
something's
halfway
wrong with
through,
my
I gotta-"
finger. I might as well. Yeah.
But he had it in a jar. And I remember I was there
He's a
like,
showman.
with my mom and dad, and they were like, "Oh, what happened to your finger?" And he comes out with this, because it wasn't like professionally preserved, so it was kind of murky, like, and he has just this finger in this little plastic jar, and I was like, "Damn,
It's incredible.
that's it."
It was fun though. Like I'd go every Saturday morning. That's when we would do it. And
Yeah.
like he was really actually good at like kind of understanding some of the character stuff. And like he kind of gave us some ideas right off the bat when it comes to that side of the business. But we like because we weren't really learning too much in the ring from him at a certain
Yeah.
point. It was kind of basic
The
only.
universal spot, dude.
The universal spot.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Taco
Miro
drop
was in
dummy
our,
frog.
our
Miro was in
class.
our
Was he
spot.
really?
Yeah.
Yeah, and he was always, they were telling him, they're like, "You need to speak Bulgarian." And he was like embarrassed. He's like, I don't
Miro is Rusev in WWE.
know what to say. And they're, we don't speak Bulgarian, so it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
like
say
no one
whatever you want.
knows.
I'm tying my
Yeah.
shoes.
But he
Yeah,
was
yeah,
like, and it's funny now to see.
But that was the California
Yeah.
scene, though, because at the time there was also
So they're talking about the California scene, and mostly they're talking about Southern California. I was a promoter in Northern California, but I know a lot of the people that they're talking about. They mentioned the Ballard brothers soon. And the Ballard brothers were identical twins who would dress up like the Hanson brothers in the movie Slapshot. So they had the whole Chiefs hockey uniform on, and they'd come out with the glasses like the Hanson brothers had, and they had long red hair like the Hansons. They looked a lot like the Hansons, and they were identical twins. Um, and I knew Ric Drasin. Ric Drasin came out to one of my shows, and they're going to talk about UPW too. And I knew people in UPW, mainly a guy named the Big Schwag, Brett Wagner, who later became an actor, and he later gave me the opportunity to be a book reviewer on syndicated radio. Which, if that hadn't happened, there'd be no Bruce Collins show today. So things kind of worked out in a weird sort of way. But I know these people because I was active at that time doing wrestling promotion in Northern California.
what's the other guy? Rick, a balder guy.
Rick
He's a
Bassman.
California guy that gosh, I can't remember his name.
I don't even know.
Whatever. There's
Bassman.
Bassman, yeah. Rick Bassman had a school. He's the guy that trained Cena originally, I think,
Oh,
right? He like
trained
Cena
Cena and Samoa
Yeah,
Joe.
because he was in that. He was at that UPW, I think.
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was.
He had UPW, and then of course Rikishi's got a school, the
Yeah.
Hard Knock school, and then you guys went to the Ric Drasin school.
Drasin.
And then I jumped over to the Ballard brothers. Who,
I remember those guys.
I knew you would know them because they're Canadian.
They
Yeah,
look like the Hanson brothers.
Yeah.
from Slapshot.
So they actually started giving me actual technique, like detail. I really liked working with them on psychology and in-ring stuff.
Mm,
And then I go to Rick's and we do more of the fun characters. It was like a good little mesh for us starting out.
right.
But those guys, yeah, they would always talk about the UPW days with Cena
Yeah.
and stuff,
yeah.
like in the late 90s.
So when did you guys connect and start, kind of becoming a unit, like a team, so to speak?
Well, I retired from wrestling when I got into middle school because the tides just turned and everyone was like, "This stuff is lame. It's fake." And I was like, "Yeah."
Hold on, this stop for a second. How were you able to start training at 9? That's not even a thing.
My parents found Rick. I used to go with my sister on the trampoline, and at first it was just like I was clotheslining her.
Yeah.
I found if Ric Drasin could make a buck, he would do it. So this doesn't, I didn't know this, but this doesn't surprise me that he was training little kids for professional wrestling. I don't even know if that's legal.
But eventually I started getting like better, I thought. So I was like giving her tombstones and stuff. And
There
my
you go.
parents were like, "This can't
That's how
be."
They'd be doing this, yeah.
So they looked, and Rick had a kids class, and it was like kids class on Monday, and
That's
the
right, he
adults
had
would
a-
go on Saturday.
Yeah.
So I went to the kids class, and like not to toot my own horn or whatever, but I was like crushing it compared to these other
You're like
kids.
the best kid.
Yeah.
there.
So he was like, I think you're good enough to come to adults, and I was like, all right, damn.
All money for him.
So I started going to the adults, and my parents would get up and take me every Saturday morning.
So Luke was totally into this.
Yeah, because he's like, look, if you're gonna do, he told me from a really young age, he's like, if you want to do this, I'll support you and all that, but you're gonna have to do it right. You can't be learning on your sister.
Yeah.
Um,
But learning at such a young age is so crazy. Like,
Yeah,
we were teenagers, we used to beat each other up in high school and stuff like that. But actually going to wrestling school
Right.
at such a young age,
and it's funny to think it hurt so bad because like
of course,
I was 9 years old, I hadn't even gone through
your
puberty,
body's
so
not
my
even
neck.
developed. Yeah.
And I remember the first bump I took, I was like, I don't know
Yeah.
about this actually, but it got easier over time. But
I
yeah,
remember when I worked in Germany, you'd work 6 days a week for 6 weeks. So it's like
Oh my God.
36 matches in 6 weeks. Amazing. But you'd have a Sunday off, but then they started this thing, Kindercatch, where they'd have the little kids coming. Like, this is early 90s where it's all kayfabe, but it's like the pro's like, oh, you have to come teach the kids. I'm like, dude, I don't want to come teach the kids. We've been up, it's Saturday nights or night. Like after that, you Sunday, we've been drinking all night. I got to get up at 9 in the morning and teach a kid how to do a drop kick. No way. I'm not doing that. Kayfabe all the way. So you were able actually to have someone do that for you.
right.
Right. So then you decided to retire.
Yeah, I figured I'd done everything I kind of wanted to do.
Yeah.
But
That's a good-
yeah, so like halfway through the 6th grade, I was like, I'm over this. And then I wanted to be in a band. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore.
Right.
And it was not till my senior year of high school that I got back into wrestling.
Yeah, that's right.
I got into it accidentally. I remember I had a girl over to my house. She was like freshly my girlfriend.
Oh boy.
She was like a grade above me too. So I was like, shit.
Oh my
Older
gosh.
woman. Wow.
Wow.
That's great.
So it was like kind of awkward. So I like put the TV on just to have some whatever. And whatever happened, I ended up like sitting on the remote and it changed the channel and Raw was on. And I hadn't
Wow.
watched wrestling in years.
It was happenstance.
Yeah. And then
Fate.
she was like trying to kiss me. I was like, well, one second, let me just like
Hold on a
see.
second, baby.
And then I just ignored her for like
Right,
2
right,
hours.
right.
And then the next week I put it, and then I kind of caught the bug again and I was back into it. So I called a guy named Fern. If you're watching this, he probably is. He has one ear. He lost it in a wrestling accident, he says.
Good Lord. One guy sawed his finger off.
Right.
Another guy lost his ear in a wrestling accident. It's a rough
Yeah.
world, Southern
Wrestling Vader in
California.
Japan.
And I
I'm not familiar with this Fern.
I knew him from Rick school, and I was like, I'm grown up somewhat now. I think I want to try it again. And he was running this training in this terrible little warehouse in Whittier, and it was free because it was like a terrible setup. But I would go down there and train for free, and then he started coming around. I don't know how you ended up there, but I bumped back into it.
What year was this? We gotta,
it was like Lucha Underground.
that's
time.
yeah, because I had just gotten I just finished doing that reality TV show Big Brother, and this was my opportunity to get kind of back into this myself as well, because I had fallen out of.
A lot of guys in Southern California that were professional wrestlers got acting gigs, and some of them, like Brett Wagner, my friend, started doing movies and things like that. He was in the movie The Crazies, and he was the guy that got set on fire. But a lot of these guys down there were taking parts in. I remember seeing wrestlers that I booked in Northern California, and they would be on a commercial a couple of years later, and I'd say, "That's so and so. I know them." Only a couple of guys that I used ended up in WWE, and of course, I used some people who used to be with WWE, like the Honky Tonk Man. But I know a lot of people that they're talking about initially, but I would say by the time Jack Perry was a senior in high school, I wasn't doing anything with wrestling promoting. But I have a story about Ric Drasin, and we had written a book together. In fact, I can show it. I'm not selling it. It's a horrible book in terms of there's really not it's really not well written. It's dated. I wouldn't recommend it. But this is the book. So You Want to Be a Wrestling Promoter. See, it came out in 2003, and you see the authors are Ric Drasin and Bruce Dwight Collins. Which, if you want to know more about me, you can go on Wikipedia and put in Bruce Dwight Collins, and that's me. That has my bio, including my radio stuff. It's got some bio information on Chad and all of that. But anyway, this is the book one of the books that I put out at that time. But the Ric Drasin was an interesting character because I think a lot of times he was very much very good with money, to the point where he really liked money. And so that story about them saying they spent $50 every time and he didn't really do a lot to train them is kind of funny, because Ric Drasin had come up with an idea for a keychain that was a self-defense item. And I don't know if he invented it, because later on I saw other products that looked like it, but at the time I was under the impression that he had invented it, this type. And it was basically called a security cat. So it had the face of a cat with the ears in a solid plastic. And the eyeballs were the two holes. So it was like a keychain. You could stick your fingers in the eyeballs. And so, like, as a self-defense item, you could take that, especially if you're a woman, at night, you could take that and poke somebody in the eyes with that solid plastic, hard plastic ears of the cat. So you can kind of, I hope you can kind of get an idea for what that was. Anyways, Ric Drasin sold that to me as a sure bet. He's going to make a lot of money on it. He just needed a few more dollars. So I actually invested in that. And, 5 weeks passed, 2 months passed, 3 months passed. Didn't see a check back, not even a little bit. And I asked him about it. And he, at that point, then he started stepping back from being committed to paying me back, I realized. So I actually took this book and I stopped paying. So I basically put everything into this book. the editing, which the editing wasn't great, admittedly at this point. The going to that publisher, working on everything basically on it. He did literally, except for writing his portion, he didn't do a lot in terms of getting it to the publishing form. And so I started giving him his share because they would pay me because everything came through me. And once he stiffed me on that investment money, I started taking out the money to pay me back that was his share of the book. And I thought that was fair. If you can't pay me back one way, why wouldn't you? Why shouldn't you pay me back through book sales? And once I had paid myself back fully from the investment I had given him, then I would have started giving him his share again. Well, guess what? He published the book a second time. And I think it's still possible if you go on Amazon, you can see this book listed twice. Once is once is my book, one is his book, but it's the exact same book. I don't know how he got, all the information. He must have scanned it or something. But I didn't pursue anything after that because I thought, that's fair game. You can do it. And of course, I dropped the price of my book, so it meant less profit, but I was getting all the orders. So two can kind of play that game. I mean, I felt like it was fair. I wasn't doing anything bad. But unfortunately, Ric Drasin passed away. I think he passed away right before COVID hit. Some complications or something like that. But overall, he was a nice guy. You just have to understand most promoters are that way. So if you can understand how they operate, then the expectation is low. And so by that regard, he was an okay guy. I even had a conversation with Brett Wagner recently, and he and I both agreed we're getting older, and so it really does no good to hold on to grudges and things like that. It's best to just let it go, and you look back with a different attitude. There was a promoter who saw me as a territorial threat in the Bay Area, and he actually called all of the wrestlers I was going to use, including the Honky Tonk Man, and told them that the show wasn't going to take place, just to stir the pot. And that promoter has passed away. So it's like I look back at that stuff and I think, I guess I get their point of view from back then because it was their livelihood. It wasn't with me. I always had a 9 to 5 job. Even doing, radio, AM radio, I wasn't making money. I always had a 9 to 5 job. So from that respect, I guess if promoting at the time had been everything, my whole world, and I wasn't a Christian, so that I had to abide by, things that are in the Bible. If I was a worldly person and I didn't care, then I guess I could see myself in their footsteps, in their shoes. So I don't hold anything, and if anything, I kind of look at that whole path. What happened to me was I started selling t-shirts on eBay, and a long story, I got into promoting wrestling. And then and then from that, I was approached to be on Brett Wagner's syndicated radio show as a book reviewer. And then on that, a guy named Ric Hendrickson, who turned out to be a guy who had produced shows on AM radio, was helping me stream a show. And through him, I was able to get on AM radio. So all those different little steps I took added up to something, which is really amazing when you think about it. Anyway, I saw that tonight, the Chris Jericho interview with Jack Perry and the other guy they call Luchasaurus, and their mention of Ric Drasin. So I thought it was really interesting. I hope you enjoyed it, or I hope you learned a little bit more about me. As I said before, we're going to have a lot of great programs coming up. So I hope you can join us for that. They're real different, real unique. We've got some odd stuff too coming, some UFO stuff. So I hope you enjoy it. Have a great evening, and I hope we can talk real soon. In the meantime, take care. Bye.